Perth Glory are stuck in hotel quarantine in Brisbane. They're not allowed to spend Christmas with their families. They're not allowed to return home to Perth and quarantine at home. And they're not even allowed to train outside. What's going on? Hi, I'm Kevin Downham, and today in this video I'll be answering all these questions on the diabolical situation that Perth Glory find themselves in. That is, how did they end up in this hotel quarantine mess? How are they going to get out, and how are they going to navigate the rest of the season? So let me give you some context as to what happened. Basically, WA closed their borders to all other states, and so out of the A-League teams, only Adelaide United at the start of the season were able to enter Western Australia without having to quarantine for 14 days. So essentially, after Perth played their round one game against Adelaide, they were forced to embark on, at the time it was a 33-day road trip encompassing Victoria, Queensland and South Australia. And then Mark McGowan wouldn't let him in for Christmas, so then that had to extend to New South Wales. And then he announced that the borders would reopen on February the 5th. So it essentially meant that Perth Glory would have spent the best part of 10 games on the road, which would have encompassed Victoria, Queensland, South Australia, then about 5 straight games in New South Wales. And that's what Perth Glory were preparing for. They were in Queensland, based themselves in a hotel, and were preparing for their round 5 game against Brisbane at Redcliffe Stadium. And then Pacific Nyonga Beer tested positive to coronavirus. And all of the Perth Glory travelling squad were deemed as close contacts, and as a result, were forced to spend 14 days in hotel quarantine in a Brisbane hotel. And what issues has this caused in the A-League? Well, for one, they had to postpone Perth Glory's matches against Brisbane and Adelaide because Perth were in hotel quarantine while those 2 games were scheduled to be played, so they couldn't play them, obviously. But it's not just those 2 games which will be affected. If we remember what happened last year, Perth Glory started the season an entire month later than the rest of the competition. Why? Well, because they spent 2 weeks in hotel quarantine having to come back from the Asian Champions League and requested the A-League to start a month late so that they could train their players up and get their fitness levels up and condition them properly. And now this same issue has happened all over again. Perth Glory have been in hotel quarantine for 2 weeks, unable to train as a group, unable to leave their rooms, and therefore will not be all that fit when they leave hotel quarantine. They won't be well conditioned. And the worst thing is, when they're due to come out, they're playing 3 games in the space of 7 days against Sydney, Macarthur and the Wanderers, all between the 2nd and the 8th of January. So not only they might not be able to play those games, but that's another 3 games postponed. So essentially, Perth Glory might have up to 5 games postponed and will be 5 rounds behind all the other teams by the time they resume in round 10. Now, yes, they can play twice a week once they do resume to catch up to the rest of the A-League. Playing twice a week in soccer is okay if you're doing it either on a one-off basis or like once every 3 or 4 weeks. But when you're doing it week after week after week, they're going to get tired. And let's not forget, they're already due to play on weekdays twice against Melbourne City and some other team I cannot remember at this point. And they're going to have another 5 on top of the 2 they've already got. I mean, that's going to cause massive problems for Perth Glory. And we saw last year, they got so tired having to play twice a week last year. Remember, they started off the season on fire, kicking about 18 goals in their first 6 games. And then they got tired and started playing like rubbish as the season went on. They had a 3-week break due to coronavirus interruptions and were allowed to return home. And then they were one of the most informed teams before, by the end of the season, as they were on their way to march into a shock finals appearance, they fell flat again. So what does that tell you? Playing twice a week will tire a team out. And I'm scared that if Perth Glory are forced to play twice a week for an extended period of time, they're going to be in massive trouble. They're not going to be able to sustain a good performance game after game after game. And they could be under a significant losing streak by the end of the season. Which is why the A-League, the Queensland government and the WA government need to do the sensible thing and let Perth Glory out to train somehow. How? Given that they could potentially all be coronavirus infected? Well, I don't know. But I guess the best solution is to charter them out of Queensland straight into Perth, okay? Basically, they go onto the airport tarmac, don't even need to go through an airport, just go straight onto a bus, and then go to an empty Joondalup resort and basically isolate there. And then let them out for training in the Joondalup Resort Gardens. I mean, many AFL teams have done this, remember. This isn't... And for people saying, everyone else has to quarantine for 2 weeks, why shouldn't Perth Glory? Well, do remember, if this was an AFL or NRL team, would they be stuck in a hotel for 2 weeks? No, they would actually still be allowed outside to train, okay? And many teams have used Joondalup Resort before to train while in isolation, so Perth Glory could do the same there. That way, only their Brisbane and Adelaide games will be postponed. Maybe the Sydney one, or maybe the MacArthur one actually, given that's in the middle of the week. But they could really play against Sydney and the Wanderers, really. And they wouldn't be in so much trouble, and they'd get at least some fitness. Look, I know Anastasia Palaszczuk is just trying to protect the community, but she should have at least had some sense to at least let Perth Glory go home to WA. And Mark McGowan should have stepped in, escorted Perth Glory home, and let them train in a designated resort, isolated from the rest of the community. I mean, that way Perth Glory could have trained, and they could have kept their fitness up, so when they did re-enter the community, and when they did resume playing, they would have had some sort of fitness to at least be competitive on the field. And you got to feel for Daniel Sturridge. He did 2 weeks of quarantine, fair enough, before the season started, and ended up spending 3 of the first 4 weeks out of the squad altogether, and the other game he did play, only 9 minutes he played, to try and get his fitness up. Now what's he going to do? He's in hotel quarantine again. So all that work he spent trying to get his fitness up, now it's gone back down because he's been in hotel quarantine. So when is he ever going to play? Is he going to even play until February? So yes, whatever happens from here, it is a messy situation for Perth Glory. It seems like they're going to be lucky not to get the wooden spoon at this point in time. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I haven't done A-League in a while, so I hope you enjoyed it. I request in the comments if I should do more A-League content. Please like, please subscribe, comment what you thought of the video down below, and what you'd like to see on this YouTube channel. Check out some of my other videos, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.